What's good, Atlanta? This is the Blog and Dirty podcast, where Dirty Bird is the word if you haven't heard. I'm your host, John Buhler, lead writer for FanSided. Exciting show for you guys today. Drake London got paid, a couple guys got traded, and quarterback race continues. But before we begin, be sure to hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, give this thing a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. Really helps the show grow. I want to give a huge shout out to the fine folks here at Blog and Dirty Bird Nation. Thank you to Gator, Bob, Eric, and Christopher for subscribing. You guys have been fantastic. Like, huge pickup here in subscribers. We're at 412 right now. Probably going to get to 420 before, maybe 420 this afternoon. 500 is very much in play here. You guys consumed the hell out of my most recent episode about Matt Ryan. And again, I primarily cover college football and college sports. I write predominantly for Bama Hammer, covering Alabama, and Ball Durham covering Duke. But, I'm a Falcons fan. We're all Falcons fans here. We're doing this, man. Very exciting time to be a Falcons fan. We're going to break through. We're going to make the playoffs at some point, or the world's going to end. And if not, we're going to keep striving for greatness here, even though it has evaded us for a while, but we're going to keep going here. And on that note, let's not beat around the bush anymore. Let's get rolling with our first run of the day. Got my other podcast confused here. Our first run of the day is Drake London got it extended, and that's awesome. It's the tone setter for this new regime of Atlanta Falcons football. I don't remember the details specifically off the top of my head. I believe it's 4 years, 100-something million. This is a guy, I think, entering what would be fourth or fifth season out of USC. The point is, this is the type of player that you pay top money towards. Look, I understand he hasn't been a Pro Bowler yet in his first 3 years. Yeah, you're 4 out of USC. He was certainly trending in that direction. He got hurt. More importantly, you want guys who want to be here, guys who you can build as pillars, not just for your team, but in the community. Drake London embodies that. He's a good guy, easy guy to root for, hella productive. I mean, it took a while for Mike Evans to really kind of take off there in Tampa. Now he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. This is the same prototype that London is coming out of USC. I did see something over on social media, on Twitter or the X, where they were talking about how, ever since the Falcons drafted London, the wide receiver market's just gone insane. And honestly, it keeps going. We'll touch on that here a little bit more in the second half of the show here. But this was an easy decision for Matt Ryan, Ian Cunningham, and Kevin Stefanski to make. Drake London's about this. This is a guy that was featured in the schedule release video. Anybody that was featured in that is going to be part of this team and this organization moving forward. These are guys that, no matter what happens, they're going to be players that this team's going to be built around. You got to pay attention and pay close attention to the visual components of that. This is a guy who's put up stats with a myriad of quarterbacks throwing him the football. I mean, what he had, Desmond Ridder, Taylor Heineke. I think maybe not Mariota, but certainly Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix Jr. last year. Now you've got Tua Tagovailoa in the building. The guy puts up stats. The guy moves the sticks. And I know that he may not necessarily be, analytics darlings because of separation. I don't care. Football's about winning. Football's about making plays. This guy does that. When it's a 50-50 ball, which is his greatest attribute, that's what, offensive coach Tanner Ernstring has talked about, is like Engstrand, not Ernstrand, whatever. I'm going to learn how to say his last name at some point. The point is, Drake London's best attribute is being a power forward out there in the middle of the field. He's going to come up with balls. He's going to extend plays. He's got a great rapport with Penix. Tua's very accurate. He'll get him the football too. By doing this now, we're talking the first few days of June. We don't have to think about this anymore. He's under contract. And people are like, oh, it's an overpay. Well, you know what's going to happen? Somebody else is going to get paid next. And then that contract will look a lot less punitive in days, weeks, months, and years moving forward. We all know that the salary cap is growing, but there's only so much pie to be divvied out. We're not paying a quarterback a lot of money right now. I mean, Cousins is under the books a little bit with dead money, but we're not paying Tua hardly anything. Penix is still on his rookie deal. This is the time to get out ahead of this. More importantly, you make this signing, then you can put all your attention in on extending Bijan Robinson. And then you figure out what you want to do here after, Kyle Pitts signs the franchise tag. And again, he could play on this. This is a guy that seems like he wants to be here. Very excited to be re-up with Matt Ryan in the organization. I mean, why would he not love Matt Ryan? Matt Ryan threw him the ball a bunch as a rookie, and he made a Pro Bowl and put up Mike Ditka numbers at tight end. Let's not overlook that here. This is one of those things where I'm very hard pressed to find people who are, in the minority here who don't like this deal. And again, the Falcons have made a lot of moves over the years where it ends up costing them. But when you're trying to build up equity with your fan base, within your locker room, within the league, more importantly, you want to show people that are prospective free agents and guys that are potentially in the draft, hey, Atlanta's going to come here. You come to Atlanta, they're going to take care of you. And I think when you operate under that way with a level of professionalism and a level of class, that goes a long way. Not all organizations are like that. Not to say that we've always been like that. We know what people think the world of Arthur Blank. I think people who work for him can be a little tight, but that's okay. This is one of those moves where I don't think anybody really had to think twice about. And I think when you have moves like this, you don't need to waste more effort and energy on it. You got to make tougher decisions. You got to figure out, okay, to what degree are we going to pay Bijan Robinson? We know he's the next LaDainian Tomlinson and Marshall Faulk, but he also plays running back, and that's a position where we've seen great people. We've seen Todd Gurley be a shell of himself before he's 26 years old. Not everybody can be Emmitt Smith, Adrian Peterson, or Derrick Henry. Not everybody is built like this. Maybe Robinson can be. Who knows? Got to figure out that contract here. And then also, Pitts is a mega talent. He's had a good but not great tenure here in Atlanta. We got to figure out what comes next. Is he going to play the rest of his prime here with the Falcons? I would like to. I've always been a proponent of Kyle Pitts. And again, I don't care about fantasy football. Maybe you do. Maybe this is your end-all be-all. I'm concerned about this team making the playoffs this year or in the future. I mean, obviously it's a new regime, so maybe there's a little bit of a grace period. But then again, we went 8-9 the last 2 years under Raheem Morris, and then 7-10 all 3 years under Arthur Smith with a far less talented roster. But Drake London's under contract for 4 more years beyond what he's currently on. I'm excited. He's going to be a Falcon. There's a reason when I do play fantasy. My team's called London Calling because I love the Clash, I love the Falcons, and I love Drake London. And this is the Blog and Dirty Podcast. And on that note, let's move on to our second run of the day here. This was going to be the lead topic, and then it changed. Myles Garrett going to the Los Angeles Rams makes the Kevin Stefanski revenge game with the Cleveland Browns that much easier. I believe the game's in Cleveland. I hope so. I'm going to make sure I got that absolutely correct here. Browns, Falcons. Yes, that game is going to be in Cleveland on December 3rd at 1 o'clock. It's going to be a soupy, muddy, wet mess. Myles Garrett goes to the LA Rams. I believe Jared Verse goes to the Browns. Again, Jared Verse is a player that I like a lot. This is a guy that was tremendous at Florida State and has been very good for the Rams. Florida State hasn't been the same since he left. That might be for Mike Norvell reasons more so than anything. But I think getting Garrett on a team that is contending for a Super Bowl, I would say very much in the vein that the LA Rams are of that. That division's loaded, though. The Seahawks just won the Super Bowl. And the 49ers are the epitome of getting to it and never winning it under Kyle Shanahan. Suck it, Kyle, forever and always. And then the Cardinals are in a contract dispute with Jacoby Brissett and Carson Beck's on that team, and maybe Brendan Sorsby joins that team. Who knows what happens here in the supplemental draft because he's done playing at Texas Tech. Anyway, what's very important to understand here is Myles Garrett going to the Rams. It does make the Browns game easier. Not only are the Browns losing their best player and, a team leader, if you will, a guy who makes a lot of money for them, but he goes to the Rams. And who's not in the schedule next year for the Falcons? The Rams. I believe we draw the 49ers in what divisional rotation with competitive balance. I think that's who we get. I think that's our competitive balance game this year. Again, I wish I remember the schedule off the top of my head. I'm so bad about this. I only remember right before the season starts, whatever season it is. Not baseball or basketball, just football, college or pro. Look, there's going to be mixed emotions about Stefanski going back to Cleveland. He did take the Browns to the playoffs twice since 2020. He won a playoff game. They hadn't done that since Bill Belichick was coaching the team. And whatever that Browns team, that eventually became the Ravens. So, in the history of the Browns as we know it now, since 99, since they came back into the league as an expansion franchise with Tim Couch, with Butch Davis, formerly as their head coach and stuff like that. They've won one playoff game, and Kevin Stefanski was in charge then. He also led a team to the playoffs that had no business. He's had to navigate the Deshaun Watson mess. He's had the ageless Joe Flacco play games for him. Tyler Snoop Huntley, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, you name it. He's had a whole bunch of guys playing quarterback for him at the Browns. He also gets to work for an owner who's chaotic, and Jimmy Haslam. Arthur Blank's a lot of things, but he's not that. Arthur Blank doesn't have a power forward team that distracts him. Jimmy Haslam's got the Tennessee Volunteers to worry about too. So that's kind of plays into like the brain power or whatever is going on in Cleveland here. Look, the Browns this is very simple. The Browns' best player is no longer on the Browns. He's on the Rams. That's a team the Falcons don't play. Now, I'm not going to say we're capable of winning a lot of road games this year. I mean, this is a team that hasn't made the playoffs in the better part of a decade now. But I think we're better than the Browns. More importantly, I think that not having Garrett there makes that game a little bit more manageable. More importantly, I'm going to take a sip of coffee here before I really unpack this part here before I get to the second half of our show. Nothing like lukewarm coffee as we approach the 12 o'clock hour here on the East Coast. I think of the handful of players and people that stayed in Cleveland after Stefanski left, I might be wrong here, but like reading between the lines, reading the tea leaves, it feels like Garrett wasn't the biggest fan of Stefanski. That's okay. There's a lot of people in this world. There's a lot of people out there who don't like me. There's a lot of people out there who don't like you. And this is a Blog It podcast. Actually, I love all of you. I love every single one of you. You guys are great. Just tolerate me for the time being. Anyway, that you're not having that negative energy in the Browns, and maybe that'll help them out. I'm a big fan of Todd Monken because go Dogs. He was also, in the NFL for 3 years previously with Baltimore. I think Cleveland will be better than expected. More importantly, I think that their quarterback play, whether it be Shore, Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, whomever, they're going to play well. Cleveland will get the most out of its talent. I just don't think this is a particularly talented team. I think we have more talent working for us. I think it really comes down to the fact that, also Stefanski's played there a bunch. He's coached there a bunch. He knows, how to win there. One of the things that has hurt the Falcons is playing on the road in cold weather in north of the Mason-Dixon line. And we got a head coach who kind of knows how to battle through that. So even though, people are still going to win these games, nothing's given to you. The Myles Garrett trade certainly makes things a little bit more manageable for the Falcons, relatively speaking. So that's the first half of our show. I'm going to take another sip of coffee, get on to our pass here. This is going to be – I always need this for this segment because it's always tough. I'm going to pass on this. This is not easy. This is something that I've not wanted to talk about. This is a little bit more dicey than even the James Pierce Jr. situation. I got to be honest with y'all. I think the A.J. Brown trade to the Patriots is gross, and I think Atlanta Falcons fans should hate it. This is all about the Patriots, the Mike Vrabel, the Dianna Russini, the A.J. Brown of it all. It's just a cluster. So he goes and he reunites with his former head coach, when they were at the Titans. Now the Patriots. Patriots won the AFC a year ago. That was Mike Vrabel's first year. Obviously, he's been caught amid scandal with, the former reporter of the Athletic and ESPN. And again, I'm not going to spend too much time on the unethical nature of that, but everything about this just bothers me. So let's go back to 2021 here. This is back when Vrabel was the head coach of the Titans. This is when Arthur Smith, former Titans OC, is the first-year head coach with the Falcons. We saw Julio Jones break up with us on Undisputed, and it really was just a disaster, just an absolute PR disaster. To be quite frank, I think it's hurt his legacy with the Falcons. I hope that we can mend bridges, put him in the Ring of Honor, and be ready to rock when he goes into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Julio Jones needs to be part of our team in our organization moving forward in whatever role and capacity he wants. He was outstanding the most talented player I think who's ever played for this team. So back then, I think there was rumors out there that I think Julio Jones was going to fetch a first round pick. The relationship, working or not, between Russini and Vrabel ultimately, lowered the price. They had somebody kind of on the inside. Okay, the Titans only need to give up a third round pick for Julio Jones, and that kind of set in motion, the dead cap, the issues that plagued Arthur Smith, just a very talent devoid team. Guys who didn't make a lot of money played very hard for him, but he was a bit too persnickety with the media to be a head coach. I think he went to the Steelers, and that turned out to be a disaster for them because it's Mike Tomlin reasons. I will say, though, I think he's going to have great success as the offensive coordinator for Ohio State. If Bill Belichick fails, he's going to take over alma mater and maybe lead the Tar Heels back to a bowl game. So that all happened there with Julio Jones, with the Titans and Vrabel. A couple years later, basically when the Titans went from being a really good team to being dog poo, their former GM, John Robinson, traded A.J. Brown to the Eagles. And this was still during his rookie contract. I believe he was a second-round pick out of Ole Miss. Him and DK Metcalf did not go in the first round out of Ole Miss. That was also, at the Matt Luke era of Ole Miss football. Lane Kiffin wasn't there. The Rebels were, winning about 5 games a year, maybe. Just kind of a mess at that point. In the wake of the Hugh Freeze scandal. Scandals everywhere, man. Now you kind of have, obviously, I think Vrabel has always wanted to be reunited with A.J. Brown. And again, this is America. This is a free market economy. If you want to make a deal, you can do it. But, it takes two to tango here. From a Falcons standpoint, I'm just sitting here. It's like, why does Vrabel get to have what he wants? Gets to have everything that he wants. And, teams like us and other people out there are left, fronting the bill, having to cover the bill. That was the 2021 in retrospect, 5 years ago. That was some tampering nonsense. That was some problematic stuff here. And again, maybe I'm too butthurt here. Maybe I'm too in the weeds. Maybe I'm flying too close to the sun here. But I think any sort of time a football personality, I'm talking about Vrabel here. Again, a guy that I kind of wish could have been the Falcons head coach instead of Raheem Morris, but the Arthur Smith of it all proved that couldn't be a possibility. When you see somebody kind of get away with stuff, from an ethical standpoint, from your moral fiber, you're like, that doesn't sit right with me. I understand the Eagles and Patriots have history. They've played in the Super Bowl. They're in the same, geographic corridor, if you will, but they're not in the same conference. So this isn't that bad here for this to happen. It's the same thing with the Falcons, the Titans. They're in the same geographical footprint too. I guess it's just it just brings to mind that we were wronged back in 2021 and it's still not being rectified. And while not that you can freeze their assets or their books or anything with the Patriots, but I'm like, why does Vrabel get to come out on top here? This just bothers me. And again, maybe I'm the only person here. Maybe I'm making a mountain out of a molehill here, but don't be lying to yourself if you think that there's potentially a snag pulling the back of your brain here with Dirty Bird Nation. If you're a Falcons fan, maybe you feel the way I do. If you're not a fan of the Falcons, maybe you empathize with us. Or maybe you just don't care. But you know what? I just had to get that off my chest. I'm done with that. Let's move on to our fourth topic of the day with some punt. Now I'm going to get us out of here with this. I'm going back and forth on if Tua Tagovailoa will be the best move this team's made this offseason. ESPN's Bill Barnwell wrote a post or an article last week, I think, talking about the best and worst moves each team made, I think, in free agency. I believe he tabbed the Falcons getting Tua Tagovailoa for a little over $1 million as their best, and then paying something closer to 10 or whatever it is for Jahan Dotson. And I think from a financial standpoint, yeah, I can get behind that. I can absolutely get behind both of those. You're paying nothing for a guy who's led the Dolphins to the playoffs, who's a college football legend, one of the most accurate passers I've ever seen. There was a beautiful spiral. There's other things about Tua I don't like, but I'll always give him that. And then with Jahan Dotson, a guy who came in with a lot of praise out of college, has not really panned out yet. Maybe we can get the most out of him. I'm dubious of that. The NFL is a different beast. It's kind of like if you haven't done it for 3 years, What makes you think you're going to do it in year 4? The NFL stands for not for long. And, while you're trying to get your footing, there's another crop of guys coming up next year in the draft and undrafted free agency. Again, half the league is undrafted. This is a what have you done for me lately league, and you got to prove yourself each and every day in practice and twice on Sundays. From a financial standpoint, I can totally get along. I can totally get by with Tua. We have to understand this is a stopgap. This is the only year he's probably going to play here, unless he really jives with the coaching staff, which I think is within the realm of possibility. I think what this is we got a guy out here that, look, if he's light years better than Penix and he's going to be a starter, I'm okay with that. But, like, if it's not by much, I would prefer to go with Penix just because you got to know if the guy can play. And again, if you feel comfortable going with Tua, then maybe that answers the questions we're all thinking about. That being said, we have more invested in Penix. This is going into year 3 for him out of Washington, former number 8 overall pick. I mean, a couple of years before, Tua went number 5 to the Dolphins. And even though Tua's been in the league a lot longer than Penix, I think he's only 2 years older than him because I think Tua left Alabama after 3. And then I think it was like 5 or 6 years of college for Penix, split between Indiana and Washington. In terms of value, I can see this being, if you invest a little bit, maybe your return on your investment is going to be really good with Tua because you don't have much in here. But, we're also talking potentially about, the additions of Avion Terrell, Zachariah Branch. You're talking about Harold Perkins Jr. all in your draft class here. You're also talking about, Azeez Ojulari is back. That's one of my favorite players at Georgia. I'm so excited he gets to play for the hometown team. Go Dogs. But, it doesn't feel like it's going to be a sunk cost with Tua in any capacity. Like, if he stinks, that's the Dolphins' problem, not so much ours. If he stinks that badly and Penix isn't much better, guess what we're doing next year in the draft? We're drafting a quarterback. Remains to be seen who that's going to be. Right now, this does look to be a really strong quarterback draft class, but didn't we say that a year ago? There's a lot of guys that we thought were going to be great players that either didn't turn pro or really couldn't play. We were talking about people like Drew Aller and Cade Klubnik being first-round picks, and they ain't that. You got guys like Sam Levitt who's back in school, Lenore Sellers back in school. Arch Manning didn't declare. Told you that was not happening. But Manning's there, Levitt's there, Sellers is there. There's other players out there as well too. CJ Carr, Josh Hoover, whomever. I'm blank. There's a bunch of other names out there. This time a year ago was Fernando Mendoza going to be the number 1 pick. I thought he was a first rounder. I didn't think he was going to be the greatest thing to happen to Indiana since John Cougar Mellencamp. And you know what? Let's get out of here. This was episode 95 of the Blog and Dirty Podcast. You can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter at X at Buhler118. You can follow along with the show on YouTube at Blog and Dirty FS. You can follow along on X at Blog and Dirty. Be sure to like, rate, listen, subscribe, review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. Give this thing a 5-star review. Tell all your friends about this show. Just tell them this long-haired dude from the South with kind of a Charlie Day voice is talking about the Falcons, and I love what he's doing. And I don't know, just keep doing this. This is good for me, my job, good for me, my profession. It's hard being a digital sports media in this day and age, but you guys have been great. You're really helping the show grow here. I'm so appreciative and so thankful that I get to do the show, at least with you guys once a week. If we keep scaling this thing here, maybe I could do it twice a week. Maybe the video team would be like, you know what? Let's give Buhler some more money. They won't do that, but they'll give me some more opportunities to talk with y'all. Let's build this thing together. Let's have a good time. Once again, thanks for listening. And this is the Blog and Dirty Podcast.